All right, let's talk about a term that you have probably seen absolutely everywhere lately. From the news to your investment portfolio, ESG. It's a huge deal in the business world, but what does it actually mean? And, why should you even care? We're going to break it all down.
Right, ESG. You've seen those three letters pop up, but what's really behind them? Is it just a new buzzword for being green, or is there something more to it? Today, we're going to cut right through all the noise and give you a really clear, straightforward guide to what ESG is all about. So let's just dive right in. Okay, so first things first. Before we go any further, we need to get a solid handle on what we're even talking about. What is this ESG framework that's become so incredibly influential? So at its most basic level, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Simple enough. But here's the key. It's not just a list of words, it's a function. Think of it less like a report card for doing good deeds and more like a special pair of glasses for looking at a company. It helps you see the risks and the opportunities that you just won't find on a normal financial statement, giving you a much better picture of its long-term health.
Now this is a big one. Let's clear up a super common point of confusion. ESG is not the same thing as CSR, or corporate social responsibility. CSR is often about being a good citizen, donating to charity, volunteering, that kind of thing, which is great. But ESG is different. It is laser-focused on factors that are what we call financially material, things that can actually directly affect the company's performance and its bottom line down the road. So to really get it, we've got to break this acronym down into its three parts, its three pillars. So let's take a look at what each of these letters, the E, the S, and the G, really stands for.
First up, the E for environmental. This is probably the one you're most familiar with. It's all about a company's impact on the planet. We're talking about its carbon footprint, how efficiently it uses energy, how it manages waste, its policies on pollution. You get the idea. It's really just asking, what is this company's relationship with the natural world?
Next, we've got S for social, and this one is all about people. It's about relationships. How does a company treat its employees? What are its working conditions like? How does it interact with the local community? And really importantly for all of us, how does it handle customer satisfaction and protect your data? This is the human side of the business. And finally, G for governance. Honestly, you can think of this as the company's internal rulebook. It's the nuts and bolts of how the company is actually run. Who's on the board? How much does the CEO get paid? Are there protections for shareholders? Does it have strong anti-corruption policies? Good governance is really the foundation that holds the other two pillars.
Okay, so E, S, and G. Got it. But this isn't just some feel-good framework. Why has Wall Street, why have global financial markets started paying so much attention to this stuff? Well, that brings us to the all-important financial connection. It really boils down to two simple words: value and risk. See, investors are waking up to the fact that a company with, say, a terrible environmental record or really unhappy employees is actually carrying a ton of hidden risk. On the flip side, a company that manages these things well is seen as stronger, more resilient, and just a better bet for the long run. And the market is starting to price in that difference. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. ESG isn't about pushing an agenda, it's a practical tool. It's a lens to help everyone, from investors to managers, look past the next quarterly report and see a much, much bigger picture of a company's real long-term strength.
Now, this all sounds pretty straightforward, right? But in the real world, well, it gets complicated. How do you actually measure all of this stuff consistently? Welcome to the messy, complicated world of ESG reporting.
Get ready for the alphabet soup of ESG standards. As you can see here, there isn't just one single way to report on this stuff. Nope. There are all these different frameworks and standards, especially with the European Union leading the way with its own set of rules. And all this variety makes it incredibly difficult to compare companies on a true apples-to-apples basis. And that confusion leads to some very real problems. The data companies report can be all over the place. Different rating agencies can look at the same company and come to completely different conclusions. And then there's the huge risk of greenwashing, where a company talks a big game about being sustainable but doesn't actually do the hard work.
So, with all these limitations, what do? Do we just give up on the whole idea? No, not at all. We just need to get a bit more sophisticated in how we look at it. We need to think beyond a simple score or label.
I mean, look at this chart. This shows the problem perfectly. How can the exact same company be rated a leader by one agency, just average by another, and a laggard by a third? It happens all the time. It's because each agency uses its own secret sauce, weighing different factors in different ways. The big takeaway here is you just can't take a single ESG score at face value. You have to dig deep.
So, what's the solution? Well, a much more powerful way to look at this is something called systems thinking. Instead of just looking at one number in isolation, like how much water a company uses, you start connecting the dots. For instance, is that company using a lot of water in a place that's suffering from a drought? Could that create conflict with the local community? Could that lead to new regulations that hurt the business? It's all about seeing how everything is connected to get the full picture.
Which brings us to our final and really critical question. On one hand, ESG gives us this powerful new way to understand what makes a company valuable over the long haul. But on the other hand, with all the challenges around data, ratings, and greenwashing, it's clearly still a work in progress. So, is ESG the actual future of how we measure value, or is it just a valuable illusion? That's the billion-dollar debate happening right now.